In episode 5, when Milius gives Josie the option, Big Alice for Liana, Josie runs at him. She's disgusted by the fact that anyone would steal a child in order to get Big Alice. Milius's men apprehend Josie, and Ben begs Milius, give me 1 minute alone with her. I'll try to convince her to take this deal to Layton. But he actually doesn't. He tells Josie, you can't take this deal to Layton. It's not worth it. With you and Layton being here, we have a shot of winning this train back. These people are sick of this crap. As he's telling Josie how they need to fight back, Milius walks in, he overhears the conversation, and he figures out real easily that Ben was not trying to convince Josie to take the deal to Layton at all. Milius's men then escort Josie into the section of the train where they think Layton is, and Layton is in fact in the old tale. He's with Till and Miles. They go back and forth on whether or not this deal is worth it, and Layton brings up a good point. They don't even know if Liana's alive, so he's going to need proof of that before he even considers giving over Big Alice. A little while after receiving this demand, Milius hands Layton a phone, and he says, go ahead, listen for yourself. And on the other end is Dr. Headwood, who has Liana, and Layton can hear the voice of his baby girl, so he knows that she's alive. And at that point, it's a matter of getting her back by any means necessary, and that involves giving over Big Alice. Layton heads to the front of the train where Ben is in order to get in contact with Ruth over in Big Alice, and he tells her, you've got to connect the trains. Ruth, they have Liana. She's not here, but they're going to take me to her. I know this sounds crazy, but we'll figure out the rest later. Right now, we just have to get Liana back. And even though this goes against everything that Ruth stands for, she never believed that going after Liana was worth giving up Big Alice. She decides to have faith in Layton and follow his lead, connecting the trains and thinking that eventually they will get Big Alice back to New Eden. They do so just in time before they head back to the bunker to resupply. When they get into the missile silo, they all have to decontaminate, and then they're all brought into one room. Everybody except for Josie. She's getting tended to by Dr. Headwood in medical because Josie has dealt with some big-time injuries that she hasn't been able to even feel because of her cold treatment. Josie missing, however, is a concern for Layton. It's also a concern for everybody else in the room. Alex, Ruth, Ben, Till. There's nothing about that they can do at the moment, though. Layton needs to get Liana and get her back on the train and get Big Alice back to New Eden. Ben knows that they have 3 hours to do this as the train resupplies. The problem is the layout of the silo is meant to keep you guessing. It's not going to be easy to get Liana back. In the middle of their game plan, Milius and his men come in, and the first thing Milius does is thank them for their sacrifice. He realizes that none of this has been easy, but he does tell them it is for the greater good. They're saving the planet. He then goes into the mission of warming the world, which is a concern to Ruth because without Big Alice, New Eden dies. And Milius explains that's the whole reason we need Big Alice, is to keep New Eden running. New Eden relying on Eternal Engine, that's hospice. It's not going to work. What we're going to do is cure the world. Alex then asks Milius, where's Melanie? Why isn't she telling us any of this? And Milius tells the group that Melanie is off base collecting climate data. She'll be back soon. He then turns the mood in the room by saying, this is the part you're not going to like. The door opens up, and in walks Wilfred. Right away, Layton tries to attack him. He's apprehended by Milius' men and taken away. But Wilfred's loving this. He loves the shocked look on their faces after they left him for dead. He goes on to explain that Milius found him on the track and saved him. But he also says that Melanie is on board with all of this. And he does admit that the idea of stealing Liana for the engine was his idea. Milius, though, puts an end to this reunion. He tells Wilfred to get out, and then he tells the rest of the group that's there, once the train leaves, they'll get acquainted with their new accommodations, which is going to be in the silo. The next time they leave the silo, the entire world is going to be New Eden. Milius walks out of the room, and as soon as he does, Wilfred's waiting for him. And while it looked like in that room there was a team effort going on and Wilfred had some power, in reality, he doesn't. Milius is really calling the shots. One of the things, though, that Milius is willing to let Wilfred do is get back on the train and get to his car, where he can grab some items, dress well, that sort of thing. The rest of the group, Ben, Till, Ruth, Alex, they're just locked in the room to digest what just happened. One of the discussions they have is whether or not Melanie is still even alive or involved. None of them have heard from her. But Ben assures them, I've gotten her blueprints. I know Mel's work. Yes, she is still alive. I'm sure she wasn't happy about the Wilfred situation, but she might actually be on board with this. And we have to accept that. For the moment, though, their goal is to get out of this room, get back on the train, and get Big Alice back to New Eden. The one person that's not really on board with this, though, is Alex. After all, she's been doing work at New Eden, she's been looking at the climate data, she's been having bloody noses, and she realizes that if Melanie is on board with this, maybe there is merit to the work they're doing here, and she wants to know more about it. She decides to do something that the entire group warns her against. She wants to go talk to Wilfred. She feels like she can get through to him and get the truth out of him. When Alex meets Wilfred in Big Alice, she interrupts a conversation between Nima and Wilfred. Nima's a little concerned that Big Alice's retrofit won't really work with firing off rockets. Wilfred just thinks that he's a worrywart. Once she walks in the door, Wilfred asks Nima to leave so they can have a private one-on-one conversation. She asks Wilfred, all right, what's the deal? What are you doing? What's the end game for this? And he claims that he's just helping them save the world. That's it. She doesn't really believe him, but then he starts to compliment her work on how she maneuvered Big Alice into becoming an energy source. And he's willing to show her the work that they're doing in the lab, mainly the work that Melanie's done. Alex, being so curious, decides to take Wilfred up on the offer. Alex takes him up on the offer, and they start sneaking through the silo to get to Melanie's lab. And as they're doing it, Alex starts questioning Wilfred on why he decided to get all of her friends in one room trapped, why he decided to kidnap baby Liana. All the while, Wilfred is just deflecting. Her friends, though, are running out of time. There's about an hour left before the train leaves, and once it leaves, they're done. And they know that once the train leaves, New Eden is done. They have to do something, and Ben decides to act. Being an engineer, he knows how to hotwire some items, and he's able to free them from that room. They start trying to make their way through the silo to get back to the train. They realize, though, they need to split up. Layton tells Till and Ben to go to Big Alice, while she finds Layton and the others, meaning Josie and Alex. The goal is to save as many people off of Snowpiercer as they can, and Ruth makes it clear, do not wait for me. As the group does split up, Alex and Wilfred had made their way to quote-unquote Melanie's lab, and Wilfred is sinking his claws into Alex. He's complimenting her on the job she's done, he's setting traps that she's falling into, until eventually Wilfred opens the door to see Ben and Till. And he jokingly makes a comment about how they're making a break for it and how he didn't think Ben had it in him, and that's when Ben punches him. In response to this, Wilfred hits an alarm alerting everybody to the escape, and Ben and Till know they need to get out of there. But Alex is not coming with them. She tells them I'm staying, but she does give them instructions on how to get back to Snowpiercer ASAP. Ben and Till are able to make their way up to Snowpiercer where they see Tristan, and they let him know that they're going to take back Big Alice, but that Ruth is still back in the silo, and Tristan's going to hold off as long as he can. Ruth, meanwhile, has been able to locate Layton. The problem is he's being transported to another room. He had a meeting earlier with Milius. Milius promised that if they get Big Alice, he will give him Liana. And Ruth had planned on trying to save Layton, but unfortunately, she was a little too late. When she finally makes eye contact with him, the elevator doors are closing and he's going somewhere that she's not. And Layton's being transported to another place, but at the moment, Milius and his staff are just worried about losing Snowpiercer. They know that Till, Ben, Ruth, well, they're having a little bit of a revolt. So they're trying to load up the train and get out of there as fast as possible. They don't even realize that Ben and Till are actually on the train and trying to get people to Big Alice to save them. While the tailies hold off Milius and his men, Snowpiercer does end up leaving. The good news is Ruth was able to make it on the train at the last second. Tristan was able to hold up his end of that deal. Shortly after the two trains leave, Ben goes to disconnect Big Alice, but it doesn't work. One of the coupling mechanisms is faulty. This isn't good. It basically means that their plan is cooked and everyone in New Eden is going to die. And that's when Ben realizes that there is one way to fix the coupling mechanism. He's going to have to sacrifice himself. Now, he doesn't tell Till this at all. He makes it sound like he'll be able to go and do this manual override and come back, but actually, Ben knows that he won't be coming back. Ben knows that this could have cost him his life, but it's important. Ben goes out in the freezing cold, and he physically disconnects Big Alice from Snowpiercer. This allows Ruth, Till, and a bunch of others to be able to get back to New Eden. Unfortunately, it does end up costing Ben his life. Back at the silo, though, there were 3 members that came from Big Alice and didn't end up making it back on the train. That'd be Josie, Layton, and Alex. Alex is actually approached by Nema, who's surprised to see her, and he asks her, "Do you ever get nosebleeds?" Which, of course, she does. Josie, meanwhile, wakes up from having undergone surgery. She has no idea what it's for, but she feels out of it, and she's being pumped full of something called C10 and C12. And then there's Layton. Milius wasn't a big fan of the fact that Layton didn't hold up his end of the bargain. They didn't get Big Alice, but he does want to show Layton that Liana is okay. So he brings him into a room where there's a giant window. He knocks on it, the curtain opens up, and he sees Liana, but Liana is being held by Wilfred.
Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.